Welcome to the Beyond Belief series, where we're taking a soulful look at the Bible. Here we explore our divine existence and get real about the conversations we were once afraid to have. This is esoteric insight, truth telling, and honest self investigation. We're sharing how old fear based stories have sparked an empowered shift in our awareness. It's going to be fun, y'all. It's live. It's safe to be here because we are definitely going beyond belief. You can find us live on YouTube Sundays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Be sure to follow the show, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation. Leave us a kind rating or a comment if this speaks to your soul. All right, family, let's get into it. Welcome to the show. Hello. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is our Beyond Belief series where we are taking a soulful look at these scriptures. We're taking the scriptures and we are viewing them through an esoteric lens. I just wanted to say that, we are taking these Bible scriptures and we are looking at them through an esoteric lens. And that's something very different from the way that I was conditioned. It was definitely through a religious lens. So I just thought it was important because looking at it through an esoteric lens means that we are looking at it through the lens of our oneness. And I have been looking at the Bible definitely through separation. It just was like God is there, and all of the stories in the Bible did not relate to me at all. I did not see it that way. So it's very nice that we're picking this apart and kind of doing it through an esoteric lens. And Da'vette has pretty much studied under the teachings of numerous esoteric scholars, such as Florence Scovel Shinn and Eckhart Tolle, Reverend Ike, Joseph Murphy, Della Reese, Neville Goddard, just many, many more. So she brings a wealth of knowledge to this area, which is so important for me. Always have lots of questions to investigate this. And I'm not doing it now to be rebellious or to look at it in a way that I'm trying to dispute it. I'm genuinely curious about how all of this works. How does this relate to me? How the Bible relates to me? How it can help me and not scare me. And I'm not scared of anything now, but
Right.
before it was. Over the next several weeks, we're going to be looking at Luke 15:20. What is that? 11 through 32.
Yeah.
And so and that's all about the prodigal son. So you are still sideways. Your name is this way straight, but your face is going sideways.
Oh my God.
So
Okay. I'm gonna have to
yeah,
come
so
off.
all right.
And
So that's fine. No problem. Yeah, just go out, come back in. That'll work. And well, while Da'vette goes out and comes back in, taking a look at the prodigal son. So I remember this is a pretty cool scripture, and my connection to the scripture is all about, a son being returned home. And in my thinking, this son left home and went out and, had this wealth and squandered all of the wealth and everything that his father had given to him. And there was another son that was at home and stayed. And then when that son who had left home, who gone out and just squandered everything and lived fat on a calf, off of his father, when he returned home, he was welcomed back home with big open arms like this. And that part of the scripture, it really touched me because it helped me to see that, like, I just saw my parents welcoming me back home after I had left maybe their teachings. And so for me, yeah, I strayed definitely away from the teachings of my parents. And again, they welcomed me back home. Why did you choose the prodigal son? Welcome back to Vet. Why did you choose this scripture? What were your thoughts
well,
about this scripture?
Well, this is one of those scriptures that really tell the story about your soul. And it tells it from the esoteric standpoint. It tells it because everything, of course, is about you. It talks about your journey into the material world.
Yeah.
And so this particular story, I like the way Eric Butterworth teach this particular story. And if you've never Googled him, he's a phenomenal teacher for Trinity Unity, but he looks at the Bible in a very esoteric way. So when breaking this down, you look at God as, of course, your God consciousness, the higher consciousness, but that represents the Father. But those other characters in there, they represent different parts of your consciousness as well. The older son, what he represents, and the younger son and his journey through these experiences. Why I chose this, it's just rich with a lot of esoteric value that can help you see yourself in a triumphant way, to understand that this experience, of course, is not a singular experience. So that's why I chose it. I love this story. And this story has been taught so many different times in the church, but just pretty nose on, because it makes linear sense, but it's so much deeper than just someone surviving a decision that he made to leave. It's more about your soul and your soul's journey here and the things that you may encounter. So that's why I chose it. I hope I gave you a deep enough answer.
It doesn't have to be deep for me, but it's a good enough reason. And because I am reading a wonderful book, I don't even have it. It's Your Soul Decoded. And in this book, there is an example of God consciousness when there was just void, and then God consciousness actually came into play. And then it's almost like when you're coughing and you see all of these little particles of spray come out of your mouth. I remember this from COVID, and they're like, cover your mouth. Well, that's what God consciousness, it's explained in the book that your soul is a part of God. And once it was like God just kind of like, I guess, thought you out or spit you out or whatever, that soul was experiencing for the first time individuation from the all that is. And that seems to be what the scripture is talking about, the descent into separation. So it's like
the descent into separation, into the material world.
Well, yeah. And then this book is really, it really gives you some context about that separation from God, not separation, but actually just coming down into its own incarnation. I thought that was just amazing, because that's how I'm looking at myself now, not as just me being born through my mom's womb, but man, just me being separate from, or just separating that little soul, just separating from the consciousness of God, individuating itself, and like coming down into like, its own
Into
incarnation. Amazing. Just yeah. Wow.
And that's exactly what the younger son represents. That's what that younger son in the story of the prodigal son. And so for those who may need a refresher on the prodigal son, it was a father who had two sons, and the younger son wanted to get his inheritance before the father died. And so he asked for his inheritance, and he took his inheritance, and he went out. And to go out into a far country, that has representation as well. So to go out in a far country is to go out into the material world, to explain life through the material experiences. So that's what far country in the esoteric means. And that helps you to understand that, so this is a journey that you chose, that you taken your inheritance and you've chosen this journey, and this journey with all of its experiences has all to do with your soul learning from these experiences and your soul evolving through these experiences and understanding that there's an awakening. And so those experiences, so the let's get back to the younger son. The younger son asks the father for his inheritance, and the father obliges him and gives him his inheritance. And he takes off. And he goes out and he has these experiences, a lot of experiences. And there comes a time in having these experiences that they no longer feed his soul. Because truly what he was looking for was not in the world, but it was within himself. But he had to go out into this material world to have these experiences to be able to even have a thought that me being home is better than me being out here feeling alone. And so
It creates this longing for returning home. That's what it
yes,
should do. It should have did, because he came back home, but it created a longing for him to get back home.
which is, go ahead.
Well, it just reminds me of when I was out in the world, like doing all types of things, you know?
Exactly.
Then after a while, that longing to come back to yourself.
Yes, yes.
Like you want out of this. I want out of this. This is not fulfilling me. It's not filling the voids, you know?
Absolutely. It's not answering the deeper questions. These temporary fixes are just doing that, temporarily holding me, but they're not holding me enough, so I continue to yearn for these things. And in the story, the younger brother ends up in like a pigsty, which talks about his lower energy.
Golly, listen, we all can probably connect to the pigsty.
Yeah.
Somebody listening to this
Yeah.
can connect to being in the pigsty. That being those lower vibrational, like feeling doubt and shame and probably all of the stuff that he's going through since he took his inheritance, went out there and squandered it.
And squandered it. Absolutely. So I'm sure ego could have lived really well in his head,
Yeah.
You're not physical responsible. You've gotten out here and now you can't make it on your own. So you shouldn't trust your own voice. You are making the same mistake that your dad told you were going to make all of those limiting beliefs. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what those experiences represent when you're talking about what the son is actually going through. Those negative experiences that tell you that you're out here alone, that you should doubt yourself, that you weren't set up to win. I don't care what those motivational speakers say. You see your present circumstance, and all of those doubting thoughts just bombard your space, your mind, your life, and you continue to create those spaces. But there is an awakening, and that's what this story really truly is about. There was an awakening, and as he was in the pigsty, as he was in the murk and mire of his mind, the cloudiness of his mind, he had a clear moment. And who cannot, really be able to identify being in the worst part of your or being in a really bad situation, and all of a sudden you have a clear thought. You have this moment of clarity, and that moment of clarity leads you to an awakening. And that's what happened with this the younger brother. There was an awakening. Those circumstances that he was in started to produce even more misery for him. And it was just was a soul lesson. But he woke up. And when he woke up, he said, hold on now, the servants in my father's house are treated better than this. The oneness of my father makes me feel like I'm important. This other stuff doesn't, so.
I wanted to go back a little bit to when the son said, Father, can you give me? And will you, the son was asking for his inheritance. And because esoterically it's talking about not like really a financial request, but really a request to individuate, like to be an individual, to go out into the world on your own terms and create your own experiences. And I think about the experiences that I have people, my friends, people that I know. You can see stuff on TV. And how do you explain to people who are having these experiences that are not palatable that they chose that you actually, it was your desire to individuate from the wholeness of God to come here? And when I look at it like that now, of course, then at first it was strange. It was weird to think of it like that. But when I look at it in that light now, it's like these experiences I have chosen, I cannot be a victim of them. I cannot victimize myself of these
Yeah.
experiences. And I just want to know how you can, how can people grasp that, especially
Yeah.
when they're going through situations that are just tough, that are hard.
That are hard and unexplainable, and they come out of nowhere and you are not expecting them. Yeah. And they just knock the shucks out of you, or they knock the shit out of you.
Mm.
So in that question, you said, you went back to the son asking for his inheritance, and the inheritance is absolutely one part of the esoteric meaning. But it's also, the one thing I love about esoteric meanings is that they sway, just like linear word. And I love that about this. And so here is this other part of it, that your inheritance is your ability to choose. It's your free will.
It's your free will. It's your free will.
Yeah. It's your free will, your ability to choose the situations, because all things have been created. Every possibility is already out there. That's how I believe. And so this experience just gives you an opportunity to choose those experiences you want to have. Now, so let's just go to my life. And that's the only life that I can speak about. I did not want to be a widow at 30. I did not want to have, to lay my husband to rest at 27. He was 27. So I don't know. I don't understand. I didn't understand how I could have asked for that.
Right.
But the choices in which he and I made led to that devastating day. And in that submersive experience, there was an awakening that happened. Not all of a sudden. It took years for me to see this awakening. But because of that situation, I can see the genesis of my soul awakening to its journey and teaching me about this journey that I've chosen. And so that your inheritance, I also feel, in my esoteric meaning, is that here you have choices and you can choose, and what a responsibility that is. But even no matter what you choose, it's okay. First of all, the law of attraction is going to bring whatever you ask for. It brings it into your experience for you to learn something. And even when it's a hard learn, you still learn something. And no, all experiences does not have to be hard to teach you something. There's definitely inflection, but that is not what this story is about. This story is about this soul coming here, and this soul having, asking its father, can he get his inheritance? And then having that experience of his inheritance, he began to see that those outside external motivations cannot explain my internal feeling of oneness.
Right. So those external things, that we're talking about could be over shopping.
Yeah. Over
It could
sexing.
be over drugging, sexing. It could be
Yeah.
lying. It could be feeling jealousy. Yeah. It could be comparison, comparing yourself to someone else.
Yes.
We tend to do that.
I'm glad you said that, comparing, because there was an older brother in this same story as well. And he represents a consciousness that you have. And
Right.
it's the dutiful consciousness. It's the
Yes.
I'll stay here and I'll sacrifice consciousness, and not experiencing his choices, not exercising his free will became his yoke around his neck.
Yeah.
It became
The people
his
pleaser.
right. And so there was resentment between the two. And
Mm-hmm.
the father, once the son has this epiphany, he sets out, and he doesn't say how long it takes him to get back home, but he has this epiphany that the servants in his father's house, which means something. Those servants in the father's house represents the oneness, the souls that are there, that are in oneness and love, and we could say positivity. positivity, instead of
All of the high vibes,
all of those
all of
higher.
that energy, all of that energy.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, I get that.
Absolutely. And so that's what those souls represent. And he's saying that I could be treated much better in my father's house because of that, because in his father's house there is freedom.
There was love, positive energy, all of the how about that's what those souls are representing, like what his father, where he knew he could get the support that he needed, the love that he needed, the non-judgment that he needed, unconditional
Right.
love and guidance, all of the okay, that really that's pretty good.
And he gets it with no judgment, because the older brother represented a judgment, because the older brother says something to the father as well. The older brother says to the father, wait a minute, you didn't set out and do a party for me like this. And the father's answer back to the older brother is so amazing. He says, son, what is mine is thine. What is mine is yours. So you always had access to it. Your brother took a chance and had an experience outside of the comfort of knowing this love. So that brother represents that aspect of us that ourselves from a standpoint is, of I did it, and why am I not being rewarded for what I did?
Yes.
I stayed, I prayed hard enough, I did this and I did that, and
I
it
didn't
feels
squander the money. I didn't take my inheritance prematurely and then just give it away.
yeah. I held on to it. I held on to the goodness, and I'm not being rewarded. And the father is saying, no, you're not being rewarded because you think that this duty is the reward. And the reward was that you stayed in peace and in a place of knowingness. You're always taken care of, So
the lesson wasn't just for the son that went out and squandered, but it was also for the son that stayed back too.
There's
was
a twofold
huge
lesson. Right. Which represents, the yin and the yang.
Yes. So the far country, I had a question about that far country because that doesn't represent a location.
No, it represents a state. It represents a state of consciousness, which is a state of consciousness of explaining your existence based on an exterior knowledge or external knowledge, to feel that being a lawyer is what defines you, or being a superstar defines you, or being a mom, whatever, these limiting kinds of things that defines you. That's what a far country is, that you look outside of yourself to define yourself.
Yes. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is. Absolutely. So that was a question that I wanted to pose. To the audience, whoever is listening to this, where in your life have you taken your spiritual gifts and wandered far from your divine center? So where have you gone to your far country?
Yeah.
I could
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Where have
That's a great question.
Taking your spiritual gifts and taking them out to your far country? And sometimes, listen, I didn't even know that I had spiritual gifts. I really did. I really have played out my incarnation as to, that spiritual amnesia that we get. I have had it because
Yes.
I'm like, what spiritual gifts? I don't have any spiritual gifts. I can remember saying that a lot of times. I thought that spiritual gifts was being able to actually, have a premonition about something, that you saw a death was going to happen and then it happened, or you had a premonition, or you had some type of contact with the other side, but not me. I didn't have spiritual gifts. So this is something important for everyone to take a look at, to see how these Bible stories are us. And I just love that I'm looking at it that way, in that way now. I love that for myself. It's not like I'm going to go and start reading the Bible all the time, though. It's not going to be that, but I do understand a little bit more. So, yeah. All right. Are you frozen? Wasted substance. That's one of the things. Wasted substance. And their wasted and there wasted his substance with a riotous living. So that's what the scripture talks about, wasted substance. But this is the misuse. So if you look at it in an esoteric sense or a metaphysical lens, you are misusing your creative energy. That is the substance that refers to that spiritual inheritance. Well, yeah, it's misusing your creative self. You are going outside of yourself to connect to your wholeness. And when you do that, you actually misuse the gifts that you have been given. You misuse the creative energy that you have been given. And you are, think about yourself out there like chasing all of that fulfillment, seeking all of that fulfillment in an external world. Right. So it's just really the misuse of creative energy when you think about the wasted substance, the wasted inheritance. It's not money. I thought about it like, dang, why would he waste money like that? But it was his creative energy that he was wasting. It was his creative energy that he was misusing.
He was, yeah, and it was
That's a
also
pretty,
his birthright. It was his birthright that he was misusing.
right, which is,
Or misunderstanding or not having a remembrance of. That's
yes,
what was going on, that he was not seeing that he had a right to eat, not in a pigsty, to understand that his father will always supply his needs. And so, it's squandering of all of it. Your energy, spending it in those lower chakras. And I don't think it's spending it, or in a negative way. That is just how we transmute the energy. So it has to happen.
yes, yes, yes. And when those things happen, when you start to, misuse your energy, not using it where it's supposed to be, disconnecting from your wholeness, then you start to feel like spiritually bankrupt, I would say.
Yeah. And
Yeah, spiritually empty.
yeah, and small, like the prodigal son felt small. When you begin to separate your thinking from when you're not in a place of remembering who you truly are as a co-creator, and you have that separate thought, you become small in your own eyes. And that makes you vulnerable to believing everybody else's opinions about yourself. But it's okay, even if if that's the route that you have to go for your soul to awaken, it's going to awaken. But there are stories that talks about this and helps us to understand that this is a journey. And the great thing about a journey, in this journey specifically, is that you get to choose your experiences. And that is your birthright. You get to co-create with your creator, the things that you want to experience. And that's what the son did once he became awakened to his inner self. He went back into him. He said, and I think the scripture says he came to himself. I love that. Like he came to himself, which is the me in me. He began to understand that, wait a minute, something isn't right here. I know I deserve more than that. And that's right. I want people to say, I deserve more than that, because you do. You really do. And when he began to see that, hold on, why am I down here eating with the pigs, groveling with them? And I can eat like a king when I go home, going inward. That's the home
Going
he's talking
inward.
about. Yeah,
I
going
love that.
inward.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good. I'm thankful for this scripture. So you covered a couple verses. We covered a couple verses today, and next week we will get back after it and dig a little bit deeper. So now
Yeah.
we know that the beginning of this story, the beginning of the prodigal son, is about the beginning of a personal journey. Is the departure of the soul from its divine home. And it's not about rebellion. It's about a greater cosmic plan, actually. It's not about us saying, oh, I don't want to be with you, God, I want to separate out. But it's a bigger plan. This is a bigger plan. This cosmic
Yeah.
plan is something that's so there are really no words to describe the cosmic plan, God's plan. It's
It
not.
is
I
no
don't have it in my
words.
vocabulary.
I don't either, because you know what? If I did, then I wouldn't be a submersive soul in the experience. So, no, I don't have words for the journey. I just have to keep experiencing the journey and trusting my
Yeah.
knowingness inside, truly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know what, family? Also, that far country, the famine that is in the story, it's not a punishment, but those are invitations for us to remember, to feel our longing to eventually return to the truth of who we are. So this chapter kind of reminds us that even when we wander, we are never truly lost. We are
Never.
on the path to becoming. So I thank you so much for joining us this week on the Beyond Belief series. I hope that something that you heard in this series, in this conversation, stirred something up in your soul and brought you closer to your oneness. And if this is your first time to the channel, listen, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the Fear to Freedom Project. And this is where fear ends and freedom begins. And like and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And you can join us again next week. Same time, same place. We're doing it again. And we're going to continue with the Prodigal Son. Until then, peace and love to everybody. All right. It's been a good week. You know what? I'm so glad. Hold on, before I leave. Today is my father's birthday. He has transitioned, and I just wanted to give a huge shout out to my dad. He was my main apple scrapper. I am the proverbial daddy's girl. So I love him. He has been with me today, and I just wanted to say happy heavenly birthday to you, Daddy.
Oh, yeah.
Love you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, peace and love to everybody. All right.